Hello, friends. I have another game to share with you all. This one's from a Game of the Week win, actually, of last year. And we recently went through the list of all the games, and this one definitely stuck out to me, and I wanted to share it with you guys. So I really wanted to emphasize the importance of having a plan in the middle game. So the difference between these two players in terms of rating is that Black is favored by about 200 rating points, and they're both intermediate range. But the plan that I'll show you guys in this game, to me, is really a big difference between like a lower intermediate player versus someone that's basically getting to expert level. So this game starts off with e4 and c5, which is the Sicilian defense. We have d4, pawn captures, knight captures, and this is the open Sicilian. And like I said, both of these players are intermediate, so they know how to develop their pieces and get through into the middle game. So all this is pretty standard, pretty good moves. Just developing. White has already castled. Black is getting ready to castle. Rook to e1, just centralizing the rook, continuing with their development. And we have a6, taking away this b5 square from all of these pieces. And this is kind of like the first step in the wrong direction from white. This is about an even position. Really, it could go either way. And like I said, every move up until this point has been played really well. The players know the beginning of the game. It's pretty safe to say. And here, white just plays knight from c to e2, which is kind of a misstep, in my opinion. It's underdeveloping a piece. It's moving a piece again, and maybe a different plan is to bring the queen out. Maybe e2 is a better square for the queen, just connecting the rooks. But instead, they go knight from c to e2. Meanwhile, black just continues with development, and this knight finds itself on g3. We have b5 expanding on the queen's side, but mostly preparing a square for our light square bishop, which is the last piece to develop. A3, not entirely sure what it's doing. And we do develop this bishop to b7. And we have another knight going backwards here from white. And we have more development from black. So black being very efficient, being very precise, bringing all the pieces out. Here we see this bishop now is taking the c3 square, which is a good development move, getting on this nice long diagonal. And here we see the knight coming into c5, just trying to get some trades. And white declines this, interestingly, and they do another retreating move, knight to d2. Now, we could take this bishop, but instead we're going after the dark square bishop. So I think this is a good idea. This bishop, to me, is definitely a better piece than its light squared counterpart. And again, we see knight to e2. So this knight maneuver is just really a lot of wasted moves from white. Now, we do take the bishop, and this knight finds itself back on c3. And here we have a backwards move from black. So white has done a lot of these, and this is really kind of the first from black. Black plays queen to b8, but you'll notice the difference is that black is improving their position, and this is really the beginning of their strategy of starting an attack. So there's a plan behind these moves. Meanwhile, white's backwards moves, to me at least, didn't really show that there was any coherent plan. They have not made any progress. Like I said, this knight has found itself back on c3 after making 3 moves of just shuffling around. So we see h3, making a flight square for the king, but other than that, not really doing much. And we have a second backwards move from black. So again, underdeveloping, but you'll see the purpose behind this. The knight finds itself back on e2. Again, not sure what this knight has in mind, but we see the reason behind bishop to d8. So it's a temporary backwards move, but it's like you're taking one step backwards to take two forwards. And this bishop from e7 to b6 has gone from just a average piece on the board being developed but not really doing much to now just a beast, pinning this pawn. And we could definitely see the queen coming here. Let's say if the knight were to go back to g3 like it has in the past, then d5 opening up this diagonal will come with a punch at the knight, as this pawn is not actually controlling this g3 square because it's pinned to the king. So already with this bishop pair just pointing directly at the king's side, we already have ideas of tactics in the position. So the rook comes back, underdeveloping a piece, but it is defending this f2 square, although I wouldn't say that that's necessarily very important in white's position at the time being. And here, black just continues trying to open up the center, opening up this diagonal. So now knight to g3 is not possible. I mean, it is, but it's just not a good move. And here, white takes, the bishop takes, and now we're definitely opening up the position in our favor. These bishops are just amazing. And white realizes this and tries to attack this bishop, knight to c3. And we could just retreat the bishop, which would be fine. But this knight that was controlling g3 has now left and has gone back to c3 for like the third time now. So queen here is definitely possible, which actually comes with a threat of checkmate. But again, we don't want to give up this bishop because that's what we need to attack the king. So instead of bringing the bishop back, black plays with a sense of urgency here. They really want to play queen g3 without giving up the bishop. And so like a bodyguard, this rook just tackles the knight. This knight looked at the bishop just a little funny, and the rook wasn't having any of it. So rook takes c3, pawn takes, and just continuing with our plan, queen to g3. Now, this threatens mate, and there's really not a lot of ways for white to defend. In fact, in this position, white is pretty much going to be in a world of hurt for the next couple of moves. Knight to f3, pretty much the only move. And now just adding more fuel to the fire, bringing the knight into h5, definitely looking at f4, which will, again, threaten checkmate. So what can white do here? There's really not much. They play king to h1, getting off of this diagonal, attacking the queen with the pawn. And we just simply take that pawn. So it's not to just gain material, but it's protecting the queen. But it's also making sure the king will never come back to g1. So this bishop, again, is just a huge piece. In fact, the rook should probably take this piece off the board. Unfortunately, white only now brings the queen in to try to help defend and attack the bishop, but the bishop simply retreats. And knight f4 is a huge threat. How exactly would you stop this? It's kind of impossible. I think white is just simply lost at this point. So a lot of those wasted moves early on basically prevented them from bringing their pieces where they should have been and where they needed to be to prevent an attack like this from happening. But yeah, it's too little too late. Again, this knight makes its final mistake. Knight to h2, and I'll let you guys pause the video here, see if you can find the knockout move from black. There's a lot of good winning options, but there's only one real answer. And black was able to find it in the game. There's a lot of ideas like queen takes h3 or bishop to d6, threatening checkmate. Basically impossible to defend. You'd have to sacrifice a rook. But the simplest, the cleanest, and frankly the most beautiful continuation from here is queen takes g2. Seemingly losing a piece as this is defended, but this is a clearance tactic. After queen takes, knight to g3 is simply just checkmate. The queen cannot take this knight as this is a pinned piece, and the king cannot move because of this knight h2 move, the queen on g2, and of course this bishop covering g1. So what an amazing finish to an amazing game. And this, again, to me, really shows the difference between like an intermediate player that knows how to develop in the beginning, but doesn't necessarily know what to do from there. So hopefully this is a good example for you guys of how to create a plan, how to develop the pieces after you've already developed them, and not just shuffling the pieces around incoherently, but coming up with an idea and a plan. And the bishop pair was really instrumental to that in this game. So the highlights to me were definitely this queen b8, bishop d8 to bishop to b6 maneuver, as well as the sacrifice of the exchange to ensure that our light square bishop has a very comfortable home in the center of the board. And to top it all off, the nice mate in 2 finish, capitalizing on this knight h2 blunder. So all those points really point to a amazing game, and that's why I wanted to share with you guys. So hopefully I get more games submitted on my Wednesday streams so I can share them with you guys. So awesome game, and yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Take care.